Great. Thanks, Eileen. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. I'm always a little nervous when the applause comes at the very beginning because that puts a really high bar on the presentation, right? So now I really can't screw it up because then you're going to want to take that applause back. It's great to have everyone here. This certainly beats a day out in the rain. So my hope today is that through the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour or so, you all get something of real value, right? Of something of real impact to you in terms of your own professional development. So welcome everybody to Why Emotional Intelligence is the Greatest Predictor of Your Professional Success. Eileen covered a lot of my bio, which I certainly appreciate. But yeah, I have areas of expertise in talent acquisition, talent development. I also manage diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as veteran recruitment at Crestron Electronics. I've been in the HR game for 16 years. So since shortly after graduating from Montclair State, I got into the HR world, specifically in campus recruitment and talent acquisition and talent development. Yeah, marketing and management, that was where my concentration's here. Where are my marketing management folks here? Did they come out? One? Just you? All right, two? All right, we got three, four? Okay, excellent. All right, we have a few folks here who I share that kindred spirit with. But I also, a few years ago, actually during the COVID pandemic, I completed a master's degree in organizational leadership from University of Arizona. So I also get very excited about the leadership piece. I see there it says, I should say 21. I'm just not used to saying 21 in anything that has to do with me. Usually everything that I'm talking about deals with an O at the beginning of it. But you also see here, I'm a big game show host guy. I love game shows. I've been watching them since I was probably 4 years old. So there's going to be a lot of game show-esque sort of activity going on in the next 45 minutes. Please don't think I'm going to lecture you for the next 45 minutes and you're going to have to hear a monotone voice just read off of slides. Not quite what I'm about. There's going to be some questions and there's going to be some fun discussion and some back and forth. So I also encourage participation wherever possible. And for anybody who also visits my LinkedIn, you'll notice I refer to myself as a below-average charity golfer. But of course, my favorite event to hack away at is the Red Hawk Open. Always proud to support Montclair State University and the Red Hawks here. So I thank you all so much for having me. I also want to encourage anyone to stay in touch with me if you'd like to. I've been passing out some of the connection cards that I have. Also, for those of you who came in after we started talking, they're on the table. So on your way out, please grab those. You can connect with me on YouTube, where the video of this presentation will be posted. So if you liked it, you can share it with some of your friends and classmates. And if you don't, then you can send it to your friends and say, look what I had to endure for an hour on Wednesday. Haha, you have it so much better than I do. And that'll be fun for you, not so much for me. If you're on Twitter, we can connect there, Instagram, LinkedIn, and also on there you'll see a Facebook page. So whatever it is that you're about, if you'd like to stay in contact, please do. And if I can ever be of any help or support to you as you go through this journey, right? You go through this, whether it's undergraduate, graduate, or just looking for opportunities in the professional world, I'm happy to do that. Also, as part of the talent team at Crestron Electronics, anybody who is actively looking for internships, co-op opportunities, full-time opportunities, there's an iPad over there on the table. On your way out, if you sign in on that iPad, it will enable my team and I to reach out to you about some of the open opportunities that we have at Crestron. How many of you have ever heard of Crestron? You know what the company is about? You know what the company does? One? All right. All right, fair enough. And there's a story there, too. Well, so funny enough, we're currently in a room that is a Crestron classroom, right? The touch panels that you see up front in this, and I think all of the classrooms in the Feliciano School of Business, those are our Crestron touch panels. We build those. We are the organization that we innovate audio-visual integration. So you've definitely used our technology before and just didn't know it. Well, we hire directly from colleges and universities, hired 113 interns and co-op students last year, and we had 40 full-time hires out of that program just in 2022-23 alone. So it's also a program that has a pathway forward into potential full-time opportunities after graduation. All right, so now I promised you some games, right? Promised a couple fun discussions here. So we're going to begin with 4 really basic quiz questions, and we're going to declare the winner as whoever is closest. All right? So first and foremost, what percentage of job performance is estimated to be linked to emotional intelligence? And you see EQ, and you might ask, well, why is it EQ and not EI? Well, EQ is the abbreviation for emotional intelligence because it compares it to IQ, right? And a big part of this discussion is going to be, well, what's more important? Is it EQ or is it IQ? We hear a lot about intelligence. We hear a lot about, well, what's somebody's IQ to be able to come in and do a job? But what studies are finding is that EQ is actually the greater predictor. So let's throw some numbers out there. What percentage of job performance is estimated to be linked to emotional intelligence? 75%. It's a good start. I like it. He stole your answer? All right, so you know what you could do is, we could do the Price is Right rules, where if he goes over, you can go 74% and just block him. You do that. All right, yeah. I like it. 74. 80%. All right, 80%. 65? 81%. Nice. 85%? You would say 50. All right, you're going to split it. You're going to go right in that midpoint. Okay, I was wondering if anybody was going to go under the 50 mark. But everyone is 50% and over, so we seem to be in pretty good shape there. Survey says 58%. So actually, you were closest. Who said 65? You were also very, did anybody say less than 65? No, those are our two closest, right? So a lot of folks are saying, well, it's a presentation about emotional intelligence. He's about to wow me with this really big number. But think about how much of what we do professionally is linked to technical skills, right? Is linked to what you're capable of doing and what your experience are. And then the idea that more than half of our professional acumen is linked in some way, shape, or form to emotional intelligence, still pretty important, all right? So there's one down. I've got two winners so far, so very well done, both of you. Second question, what percentage of high performers, so an organization's top performing employees, are estimated to also be high in emotional intelligence? So what is the correlation between the top performers in an organization and people who are rated as being high in emotional intelligence? What do we have? Person, yep. Yeah? 95%. All right, starting with the big numbers. Coming up with the big guns, yeah. 80%. Okay, good. So I had, yep. 63. Okay. 73. 87. 85. All right, we had an 87. We have some big numbers up there. 60. 65. Okay. You're good. That's two in a row. Did you get the slides ahead of time? Did you come to this last year? I did this last year. All right, no, this is just straight, great start right out of the gate. 2 for 2, 90%, right? So 9 out of 10 of an organization's top performers are also highly rated in emotional intelligence. It's just that one, right? There's just that 1 out of 10 who's like, yeah, I'm really, really good at this job, and I really don't care if anybody likes me. You know, and we all know that person, or maybe we are that person. I don't know. But 9 out of 10, I mean, that's really, really something. All right, third question. What percentage of low performers, all right, the folks who are at the bottom of the ranking system, are estimated to also be high in emotional intelligence? All right, so this one's a little bit trickier, right? You think, okay, high performance, high EQ, goes together. It makes a lot of sense. But now we're talking about low performers, high EQ. What do we think? Yeah. 32%. So we're starting with the lower numbers. Okay, good. 32. 24. Who said 24? 24. Because he's gotten 2 right, he's not even raising his hand anymore. I'm just going to throw the number out there. I like it. It's a G move. 23. All right. What else do we have? Yeah. 50?
Like 10?
10. Going real low. Yeah. 45%. Who said, did somebody say 20? 23. What'd you say? You said 24, so he blocked you by 1. Nicely done. Nicely done. All right, you still have one more question to try and tie it up. All right, and then maybe I have a tiebreaker later on, but 20%, right? So you have folks who are performing at a lower clip, but they still have emotional intelligence that's on the high side. What does that tell you? Somebody who is not performing well in an organization, but emotional intelligence is a strength. Where do you think the disconnect is? And that's not a rhetorical question. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Could be effort, right? I have really strong emotional intelligence, but maybe I'm not motivated, right? Maybe I'm not in a position where I feel like I can give my best effort. Yeah.
Maybe self-aware.
Self-aware, okay, absolutely. They may be very self-aware, right? They may possess that skill, and that self-awareness is, I don't want to be here, right?
Lack of
Okay, could be a lack of discipline, right? Emotional intelligence does not necessarily mean somebody is very highly disciplined, at least not in professional skills. It means that they may be highly disciplined in another area, which we will talk about in just a moment. Right? There's a whole variety of different reasons why somebody might be a bottom performer, but still strong in emotional intelligence. Right? It might be an organization that is dealing with some very tumultuous times, and that person just really hasn't had a chance to show what they're capable of. They may be very strong in EQ, but they may be in a role that, from a technical skill set standpoint, is a little beyond them. Right? So this is where the talent development side of me comes into play and asks the question, is there some upskilling we can do with this individual? Is there some way that we can try and elevate them or to renew their skills so that way they can use that high EQ with a high technical skill set and then be a top contributor or a top performer? Right? Or maybe they've been overlooked for opportunities, promotions, development, and they're just at the point where, how many of you have heard the term lately, quiet quitting? Really hot term going around in professional circles right now. It's the person who has decided, I'm no longer going to put the full requisite effort into doing this job, but I'm also not going to quit because I'm getting paid. And maybe I'm getting paid pretty well, or maybe I just feel stability. Maybe I don't have anything else lined up. So they're just not going to get the full effort out of me, but I'm not going to leave. All right? Last question. How much more in dollars, this is the hardest question, on average per year are made by employees with a high emotional intelligence versus a low emotional intelligence? Obviously, if we were to take a look at people in executive level positions versus folks in early career positions, those are going to be very, very different. But on average per year, how much could somebody who is high in emotional intelligence expect to make more than somebody who is low in emotional intelligence? $30,000. $30,000. Interesting. Okay. $20 or $20,000? $20,000. Okay. $15,000. So you set the bar really high with $30,000. Everyone's coming in underneath it. All right. $37,000 a year. What would you do with that much money, right, per year? Well, let's. 29. He was really close. All right, that was very well done. Congratulations to all the folks who got those numbers as close as they did. But think about that for a second. $29,000 per year on average for folks who are high in emotional intelligence than folks who are low in emotional intelligence. In any given year of your life, would you ever look at $29,000 on the table and say, nah, I'm good? Don't need it. You know what? The wallet's getting a little tight anyway. I probably should stay away, let somebody else have it. How many of you would do that? Sign up for that tomorrow? No, or we're not thinking so? Okay. So we're not good with that. All right. So we feel strongly enough that, okay, high EQ, higher earnings on average. Even if it's not $29,000, it's probably not nothing. All right? Good. Excellent job, everybody. So here's another discussion question. How many emotions do we feel? A lot, okay. Maybe. Now here's why this is a discussion question. I have been researching this topic for many, many years. I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert. There is no correct answer to this question. All right? But what do you think? How many emotions do you think we feel or are capable of feeling? You say 4. Okay. Let's talk more about that, right? Let's follow that thought through. 4 emotions. Why 4? And what do you think those 4 are?
So like the basic one, happy.
Okay.
Then you have sad.
Okay.
Then you have angry.
Okay.
And then I guess.
I mean, those 3 right there are outstanding, right? Happy, sad, angry.
I was thinking of one more. I don't know.
It'll come to you. Don't worry about it. All right, but happy, sad, angry, those are probably, if we were to poll every room that I did this presentation in and ask them, what are the first 3 emotions that come to your mind? Those are probably them, right? Happy, sad, and angry. All right, anybody else have a different answer? We have 4.
Fear.
Fear. All right, that could be a 4th one right there, all right? Fear. That's not happy, that's not sad, that's not angry. That is its own emotion entirely, all right?
I think it could almost be unlimited.
Unlimited. Okay.
Because if someone is feeling maybe partially happy and partially sad at the same time, what do you call that?
Yep. Yep. I mean, can we safely say that there are probably points in which these emotions intersect? Okay. Anybody other guesses? Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say basically that countless emotions because sometimes you don't even know exactly how you're feeling and you can be describing it a certain way. Like
That's right.
say, I feel defeated or something like that.
Ooh, good one.
But it could be something else underlying it.
Yeah, that's a great point also, is they may be presenting an emotion outwardly, but what is behind that emotion? What's underneath that? That's a really important question. I know we're kind of getting into the psychology right now. We're going to do a little bit of that at the beginning. And for anybody who's really into the psychology of EQ, I kind of consider myself a little bit of a leadership nerd. I'm very proud of it, right? But I brought a scholarly journal article for anyone who's into that sort of thing. But it actually talks about emotional intelligence as a predictor of academic and professional success, and there are copies on that table. If anybody wants them on their way out, please help yourselves. If you wanted one but didn't get one because I didn't bring enough copies, you can let me know and I will send you the PDF of the article. But it actually depends on what study that you're looking at. There's a study out there that says there are 8 primary emotions. There's one that says 5. There's one that says 34,000 estimated emotions. 12, 7, 27, 25, 9, we're running the gambit. And all of these are perfectly relevant studies and explanations of the emotions, but we're all over the map here, right? Especially 34,000, a little bit of an outlier, right? We're going to deal with 5 primary emotions, which is actually, what was your name, man? What you said was really close to what we're going to be talking about here, right? So there are 5 primary emotions that we look at when we're talking about EQ, at least in the early going: happy, sad, angry, afraid, and ashamed. Ashamed is very unique. It really doesn't fit into any of the other 4 buckets. But when we think of the unlimited number of emotions that we feel, what we're often talking about isn't necessarily a unique emotion, but a different intensity of one of these emotions, right? So for example, somebody who's feeling a very low emotional output of happiness. How are you doing today? I'm good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling mellow. I'm feeling pleasant. I've never told anybody I feel tender, because then they're going to ask me if I've seen my doctor. But, you get the idea, right? Some events in our lives can create a far greater intensity of any of these emotions, right? I think we could all probably think of any common time in which we felt glad or content. But think about the times in your life in which you would say you felt elated, excited, overjoyed, thrilled, exuberant, ecstatic, fired up, or passionate. Those are much more few and far between, right? How many of you could think of a time in which you felt one of these high output happy emotions? Do you want to share it with us? It's a personal thing, so.
A couple hours ago.
Nice, because you knew you were coming to this presentation.
I was talking to one of our new coaches, and he was really firing me up. He was
Okay.
excited. He was excited. Carried over to me.
Okay, absolutely, absolutely. What sport?
Football.
Awesome. Okay, so new football coach, got to meet this individual, and their enthusiasm, their energy carried over. And I love the fact that you use fired up, right? That excitement. And there's one of my favorite, one of those motivational posters that you sometimes see in classrooms or in businesses. And I've seen this one for 25 years, and it's still my favorite one. It's a picture of 5 matchsticks. And they sort of look like the bars on your phone to let you know how much signal you have, right? They're staggered upward. And the first matchstick is completely on fire. And the second matchstick has just caught the spark, right? We all know when you strike a match, there's that initial kind of spark and then the flare, and then the flame calms down a little bit. So we see the calm flame in the first matchstick. You see that spark occurring in the second, and your mind instantly knows what's going to happen to those other 3 matchsticks in the next several seconds. And below it says, attitude is contagious. Is yours worth catching? Because whether it's a good emotion like excitement or motivation, that can carry over to the people around you. So can these other emotions. So can sadness. So can anger. So can fear. So can shame. This is part of the reason why EQ is so important in an academic and a business setting. Because we're not just talking about what you feel yourself and how you are going to perform based on that emotion, but we're also talking about how you're going to potentially affect the people around you. And once you affect them, what are they going to do? Are they going to affect the people around them? You could end up being the most positively infectious person, and I have to say positively because if I call anybody an infectious person after 2020, I'm going to get a lot of really weird looks, right? But you know what I'm saying. Your emotions can be infectious. Now, this is also very important when it comes to the sad feelings, right? We all have days in which we just don't feel ourselves. We don't feel quite right. We feel disappointed, dissatisfied, unhappy. How many of you have ever had just one of those days where you wake up and say, I just don't have it today, I'm just not feeling myself? Can't really put it into words, but I'm just having a day, right? This is very, very common. Not necessarily something has gone wrong, we're just not there with the usual level of enthusiasm that we would hope for. But then there are those events that might leave us feeling depressed, agonized, alone, hurt, dejected, hopeless, right? Sorrowful, miserable. And this is very important to recognize because we're also talking about mental health here. We're talking about wellness, which is a massive topic in school and in the workplace right now, is being aware of when those emotions become so intense that depression and agony start coming into play. And then you really want to take a look at what's causing that, what's at the root of that, and how you can get through that, and how you can be supported, right? Same thing with anger, right? Anger is a really important one in the workplace, because in the workplace, a lot of times we're talking about conflict management, conflict resolution, right? You're on a sports team, right? Ever have conflict within a team?
Yeah.
All right? How many of you are part of clubs, organizations on campus? Have you ever, in your case, which club are you a part of?
I'm a supervisor.
Okay, outstanding. Any conflict ever occur on that team where there's a disagreement or there is some energy in which two forces are kind of pushing against each other?
I mean, there have been, like, because I'm on the e-board, so we do have, like, e-board issues at times.
Yep. Yep. So within the leadership group of that organization, there can be conflict. There can be issues. Now, when that conflict is, I'm a little annoyed by that meeting, I'm a little perturbed, I'm a little irritated, I'm a tad touchy, it's fine. Usually work through emotions like that with open communication, with discussion, by addressing it. But when that becomes furious, enraged, irate, betrayed, now we're talking about emotions that can cause fractures within an organization. Right? Does all this make sense? Anybody have any questions about these key emotions and their intensity? All right? Have we been part of organizations in which we've seen this dynamic at work? Okay.
Yeah, I have. I've worked at a restaurant. Restaurant industry. Some of my coworkers at times would demonstrate angry emotions, and sometimes have explosions, and storm out the room, and start yelling and stuff like that.
Yep, absolutely right. I used to, prior to being at Crestron Electronics, I did talent acquisition that was very centered around customer service and sales roles. And I interviewed a lot of people who worked in the restaurant industry, a lot of people who worked in the retail industry. And I'll tell you something, you ever really want to see what the height of a customer's anger is? You mess with their food, you mess with their clothes, you mess with their pets, you mess with their money, or you mess with their kids. Those are the five.
No, you missed one.
Which one?
Cell phone. I work for Samsung.
All right, I stand corrected. Yep, absolutely. You mess with their tech. Absolutely right.
Like, if you have never seen someone in the high angry until they lost all their pictures and their contacts.
Well, that's also family, right? It's like my photos on my phone are 80% my 5-year-old, right? If I woke up tomorrow and those were gone, whoo, let's see which one of these I'm going to be putting on that day, right? Absolutely right. But you see how it affects the people around in that industry, right? The other customers. It might completely ruin their experience. The other employees. God forbid you have a new hire that day who happens to be there when somebody feels irate and it boils over for everyone to see and it's on full display. It can lead to much greater issues down the line. So this deals with 5 key main emotions and then the intensity of them. But there are so many other, I know, right? It's an intense picture. I just found this one, right? But this gives you an idea of just how these split off, right? You see sad, dislike, alone, angry, embarrassed, and afraid. And these are just the uncomfortable emotions. And how those will split out into much more specific feelings, right? How are you? I'm embarrassed. Well, why are you embarrassed? Well, I did something I shouldn't have done, and I really feel guilty about it. Okay, so you're feeling guilty about it. I want to apologize. I feel remorseful. I feel repentant. Right? You can get to the bottom of how you feel just by talking through a little bit of, well, what's behind it, what's causing the emotion, if you know. Right? If you know. This is where, in a workplace and in an academic setting, this is where mentorship is very important, right? We heard Eileen talk about the mentoring program, right? The CEO program that exists within the School of Business. And part of the discussions the mentors often have with the mentees is, how are you feeling? Do you feel stressed? Do you feel angry? Do you feel happy? Are you in a good place, right? Because this affects how you feel beyond just that particular issue, right? Comfortable emotions. Unfortunately, there's 5 of those, whereas there were 6 of the uncomfortable emotions. That doesn't really seem fair. But you have loving, accepted, confident, interested, excited. My goal today is to get everyone into interested. And I'm going to try and stay out of intimate and go for intrigued. I think that's probably a little bit more appropriate. And hopefully maybe we can end up with fascinated, right? Or maybe we can go through curious to inspired. If you all leave here today feeling inspired, then I feel really good about that. Yeah?
I just had a question about
Yeah.
all of the negative emotions and all of the positive emotions. Is it possible for example, all of the negative ones to be derived from one source emotion?
True.
And then maybe the same for positive?
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're getting really deep into the psychology, right? But when we talk about somebody who regularly displays a lot of the negative or the less comfortable emotions, right? And they go through some form of therapy, or they're talking to somebody, and it comes back to having grown up in, let's say, an environment where anger was just the rule of the day, right? It was a very high-stress environment or a very angry environment. A lot of times that a lot of those emotions that show out will end up being linked back to one particular feeling of kind of residual anger. Now, there's also another piece to this, and I'm getting kind of into the diversity, equity, and inclusion side of this as well, is that there is a very clear double standard when it comes to emotions within society, right? And this is something that professionally we also have to be able to address, and that organizations have to be able to address, right? Who do you think in our society is looked upon more favorably when they display angry emotions? What? It'll come to you. Yeah, it'll come to you. But so think about it in terms of cultural demographics, right? Men, right? There is this cultural idea that it's more okay for men to get angry or to default to a feeling of anger than it is for women to do the same. And this is a societal double standard that has created a lot of barriers. Now, conversely, what is the emotion that those double standards say that men are not supposed to show? Right? Men should not cry, men should not show sadness, should not show any of the emotions here. And as a matter of fact, if they feel something in this column, they should default to here. Right? Now again, we know a lot more about this now than we did 50 years ago, but this is a concern for organizations today, is how do we overcome those double standards? How do we make sure people understand that it's okay to have a full range of emotions? How do we make sure people know that there's no particular gender, culture, race that should show these emotions more often than somebody else? And that's why emotional intelligence is so important. especially when we work in a society that is increasingly more diverse. Right? Any questions about that? We could spend a whole nother hour just on that topic. All right? So this quadrant here that I want to discuss with everybody shows the 4 major facets of emotional intelligence, right? And it's broken up into a couple specific axes. You see on the left, your awareness. This is who I am, who you are, who we are. And then there's management. What do we do? How I am. All right? And then at the top, you see self and social. All right? So now in this first quadrant, top left, you're going to see self-awareness. This is for you as an individual to understand your emotions, your triggers, what you feel, what you do, who you are, what you're about. Self-awareness, I will tell you now, is one of the most underrated skills, personally or professionally, that people can have. So if you can practice self-awareness in any way, it is to your benefit. All right? So self-awareness, this is how you can recognize and understand your moods. That little voice inside your head that says, you're starting to get a little mad now. Let's be aware of that. Let's not lose sight of what we're doing, why we're here, who we're with when we're showing these emotions, right? What triggers you? Do you tend to feel emotion early on? Do you tend to be more intense emotionally early on? Or does it tend to take a little bit more time for you to get up, to ramp up to that point, right? So if you are angry about something, do you default to defense? Or do you start with being a little touchy and work your way up, right? And that was another piece that used to be tagged on certain cultures. So, well, this is a culture that tends to be more emotionally intense, so you have to be really careful. And it created this really unfair barrier for people in these cultures. But the fact is, anybody can feel intense emotions at any given time, especially if it involves one of their trigger items. All right? Then you have social awareness. Now, social awareness is how you understand the emotions of others. Who's around you? What triggers them? Are they starting to have their emotions boil up a little bit, right? Happy, sad, angry, ashamed, or afraid, right? If you take no other word away from this presentation today, I hope it's this one. I hope it's this one. If self-awareness is the second most important skill that you all can leave here today inspired to work on, I hope this is the first. All right? How many of you have had in your history, either in an internship, a job, or a classroom setting, a volunteer activity, have had a leader or a manager that you would go on record saying that was a great manager, that was a great leader, this is somebody I truly respect, maybe a coach? You have. Okay. I'll put you on the spot for a moment. What are some of the traits that you would highlight as being why that person was such an effective manager?
She was very communicative, very direct, very hey, this is what I need, this is what I want.
Great.
And I will give you the space, the time that you need, but just give me this, and that's how I like. I don't like someone being very on top of you, like a manager. That
Micromanager.
you.
Yep.
She was great on that. And if you didn't do what you were supposed to, then she would give you a warning and be like, hey, da da da. But
Yep.
you know.
Here's what I expect from you. I trust you to do this. I'm not going to be breathing down your neck every minute of every day. If you have issues, come see me. And if it's not done, expect that we're going to have a conversation. It's a very effective way of managing people and processes, right? Would you say that this manager was an empathetic person? Would they have an idea of what was going on with you, and did they care?
Yeah, and we had conversations in her office just to have them. Like, she would be like, hey, Ellie, come in. And I would just be there for 30 minutes, and we would be talking about, like, we weren't working, but we were just, but that was work because she knew me, you know?
Yeah.
So she would be like, hey, what do you need? What can I do? And she knew I was in school, too. So, yeah, no, that was very
Yep.
good, too.
I was watching a special the other day. I don't remember what channel it was on. I don't know if it was ESPN or something like that, but they were talking about Tommy Lasorda, who was the manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers during the 70s and 80s at a time when the Dodgers were pretty good. Now, Tommy Lasorda was a little bit of a loose cannon. You want to talk about somebody who went right to the top of the anger emotion very frequently and sort of had that old world view of this is what I'm supposed to do. But it's really interesting is I'm listening to an interview with one of Tommy's star players, and he said that Tommy Lasorda was the first manager he ever met who, during a meeting in the locker room, said, hey, how's your son, right? How's your family doing? Hey, I remember your son was sick. Are they okay now? Remembered some personal detail and didn't just remember it for the sake of checking a box, but genuinely cared about how that person was doing. Because as a leader, Tommy Lasorda knew that if this person's head is clear of that stress, then they're probably going to be in a position to put their best out, right? Their best output on the field. And if they're not, then as a leader, I need to see what kind of tools they might need or what support that they might need to get them there, or at least to get whatever we can out of that individual. It was a really interesting look back on somebody that you wouldn't think as being very empathetic, right? On the flip side of the coin, managers that you've had that were ineffective or that were very negative caused you to lose your enthusiasm for a role. How many of you have experienced that at some point in your lives?
It was the same manager,
Okay.
but not the same one, but the one before her.
Okay, same position, different
Yes,
person.
yes.
Okay.
It was so funny, and like you could really see the difference between the two, and it was just
Yep.
like
Yep.
one person can change in a role. That was crazy.
It can completely turn an entire team around, good or bad. I've seen it, right? I've seen it firsthand. Is you bring somebody in when a team is just moribund. They have nothing left to give. Everything's spiraling out of control. Projects aren't getting done, right? In the sports world, I'm sure you've probably seen this. Team's not playing well. Everyone's on top of each other. Everyone's just like, I don't know what we're going to do. I have no idea what's wrong. New leader comes in, sets a new tone, tells a new story, provides a new message. All of a sudden, everybody wakes up, right? We see this in a lot of different facets of our lives. And what oftentimes we find that those negative managers, what they lack is empathy. They don't care. They're so task-oriented that they're not concerned about the people who are doing the tasks. Does that make sense? We're good there? Now we get down to self-management, all right? So now we're self-aware. We know what triggers us. We know what our emotions are. We know the intensity at which we feel them. Now we're starting to feel them. How do we manage them within ourselves? What steps do we take to control, redirect, or harness impulses? Control, redirect, or harness impulses. This is the idea of think before you speak or think before you act. Now, I want to be clear. This doesn't mean suppress. This is not asking you to ignore emotions or suppress emotions. If you're angry about something, there's probably a reason. If you're sad about something, there's probably a reason. And the best course of action, and I'm saying this despite the fact that I know that I've done the opposite, probably this week, is to say, toughen up. You'll get past it. You'll get through it. Just ignore it. It'll go away. That is not the best strategy to deal with when you start to feel those impulses and those emotional reactions going on. Instead, to recognize them using your self-awareness skill and saying, okay, I don't like where I'm at right now. I'm not in the right headspace. So you know what I need to do? To make sure I don't make the wrong decision, I'm going to take myself out of the situation. I'm going to call that mentor, that person that I feel really comfortable speaking to, and I'm going to see if somebody can talk me down. Also, by the way, this occurs with happiness as well, right? I use a lot of sports analogies, so hopefully nobody minds that. But there's an old saying where it's, act like you've been there before. You heard that a little bit. You hear that a little bit when you're watching a football game and player scores a touchdown and the celebration is so over the top. And it's usually the fans of the other team, which means this year it's probably been my Packers, probably against you, against the Eagles last week, where it's like, all right, come on, act like you've been there before, right? But if you have those moments of elation or incredible happiness, sometimes it's really, really tough to control that, and you don't think of showing happiness as being a bad thing. but also understanding to control that around the people that you exist around, right? Because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what they're feeling. And you also want to show that level of kind of emotional maturity, all right? So that's self-management. And then finally, we get down to social management, all right? So these are your social skills. This is not just how you manage and maintain yourself, but how you adjust to other people in social settings. This is how you will hope that they adjust to you. This is how you will build your network, right? You've probably heard networking, pretty doggone important, right? There's an old saying that I hate. You heard before, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And usually that is being said in response to somebody who gets something because their network opened the door for them. And somebody else didn't. It's not what you know, it's who you know. It's usually coming from somebody who's a little bit jealous of somebody else's success. Now listen, are there situations out there where some people just have a lot of networks and a lot of opportunities and pathways open to them? Yes, absolutely it is. But it also underscores the opportunity that you all have to continue building your professional network. By show of hands, how many of you, and leave your hands up after you put them up, how many of you have a LinkedIn profile? If I went to LinkedIn, I could find you. Right, leave your hands up if you have a LinkedIn profile. Now, keep them up if you can tell me confidently that your LinkedIn profile is 100% complete. I'm not looking at who's lowering their hands. I just know a lot of hands just went down. You can put them down, right? That is your networking tool. If you don't have one at all, I'm imploring you to get one. It does provide value, and it does not cost any money. All it costs you is time and effort. And if your profile is not 100% complete, I encourage you to take 15, 20 minutes today. Try to resist the temptation to go and sit out in the sun today and go into your LinkedIn profile and see what is incomplete and complete it. Because that is your opportunity for networking. When there's a speaker like myself or somebody in a classroom, a professor that you want to connect with, don't miss out on the opportunity to build that network because you never know when you're going to need to rely on that. All right? So self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, social management. Right? So let's go through a little bit of some of the tips on how to improve each of these areas. And I just realized we're already down to our last 12 to 15 minutes, believe it or not. All right? I am shocked. I thought we had another half hour. All right? But you're all going to stay anyway, right? You all have class? Yeah, I get it. I get it. Classes. All right. So self-awareness, the ability to perceive your emotions with accuracy, right? And with accuracy is very important. Self-awareness is also when you say you're fine, but you're really not fine. You know, and that means telling yourself that you're fine if you're really not. The accuracy of self-awareness is to understand what you're actually feeling and to be able to address it. Understanding your situational tendencies. This is a really true one. When I am confronted with news that I did not want to get, I get even more fidgety than usual, right? I start to feel the hand shake a little bit because I might feel conflict coming on, or there's anticipation, or there's something in the pit of my stomach that says, I know I'm right about this. I can't wait to tell this person why they're wrong. And it's going to be so much fun, right? In poker, anybody ever watch poker? Right? There was a big poker craze right around the time that I was in school, so early 2000s. And when somebody does something, says something, there's a movement that another player can perceive what that person has in their hand. Do you know what that's called? A tell. It's called a tell. What are your emotional tells? What happens when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're angry? What are the physiological responses that you do not make happen, but you notice start to happen? Does anybody know that they have one or more of those? Who doesn't mind sharing?
Well, whenever I feel like anxious or nervous of something important that I care about, my palms start sweating.
Okay. Yeah, you do what I refer to as the M&M, right? The palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, right? You know, we all get that feeling. Right? And by the way, that's also really funny when that happens in professional situations like career fairs. I would do career fair prep seminars with students who are getting ready to go to a college career fair. And there's that anxiety, that anxiousness, that anticipation, that emotion. And if sweaty palms are your tell, when it comes to that emotion. I will often coach the students before they walk up to the table to just go like this and put their hands at their sides against their pants. They're very subtly drying their palms before they walk up to me and put their hand out, right? Because I really don't want to get the, yeah, exactly. I really don't want to get the dead fish, like straight on down to that. But at the same time, I also don't want somebody walking, okay, what's going on? You know, I don't want that either. That's a little bit of a tell, right? So understanding your physiological responses and not necessarily trying to suppress them, but knowing how to manage them. That's part of it. All right? Self-management. All right, so we're self-aware. Self-awareness doesn't mean anything if we're not able to take actions that allow us to manage what those emotions are. So understand what are the actions that we can or will not want to take. What are our influences? How do we stay positive even under stress? Really difficult skill. I admire people who in stressful situations are able to shrug their shoulders and say, okay, well, we just have to deal with it. Right? I've gotten better at this. I'm still nowhere near some of the people that I look up to in this area. Right? I refer to them as a duck. Right? And I don't mean like Disney's Mighty Ducks or any. I'm talking about not Oregon football. These are the people who they look calm on the surface of the water, but underneath where you can't see, they're going a mile a minute. So they're always thinking and they're always coming up with new ways to approach situations, but you wouldn't know it was freaking them out because they're just gliding on the water. I admire the ducks a great deal in this world. It's a difficult skill. Catch triggers and flashpoints early. Avoid sudden bursts and delay gratification. I put delay gratification on this presentation specifically as an homage to a Montclair State University professor. Has anybody ever taken a sports psychology or a yoga class with Dr. Rob Gilbert? All right, he is a legend here. If you don't know who he is or what his success hotline is, please go and check it out. As a matter of fact, there's a really cool story in, I think, the Montclarian about how Cory Booker calls Dr. Gilbert's success hotline every morning to get a dose of motivation before he starts his day. It's really kind of cool. All right, but he always says delaying gratification is the ability to focus on what you want most instead of what you want now, right? What I want now, because I'm so angry, is to flip this table over. What I want now is to just burst into tears. What I want to do now, because I'm so happy that I got that paper back and I got that A on that paper, is do a little one of these, right? This is my terrible Chandler dance from Friends, right? Despite the fact that you don't realize you might be sitting next to a person who just got a D and they really don't want to see you dance, right? Controlling the emotions, delaying the gratification. I love this term political agility. There's a manager, a VP that I keep in good contact with who talked about political agility as being a really critical skill. That is the ability to adjust to who you're dealing with, who you're speaking with, in order to make sure that you get the most out of that relationship as possible, right? Have you ever watched Mad Men? Hands up. Any Mad Men fans? You're my one Mad Men person? All right. My favorite television show of all time. Love Mad Men. And there's a really cool line in it where one of the characters is asking the other one, what is the job of an account executive? And they say, it's putting off what you want. It's putting off what you want so you can get what you need, right? It's this idea of political agility. Social awareness, we talked about empathy a little bit and how critical that will be. Being able to perceive and understand others' emotions will only work if you actually care what other people are feeling, right? Otherwise, if you think you're just trying to read people, then it's going to come off as contrived or inauthentic, and that's the last thing that you want to be. All right? This may be the most important piece here. I very often will, when I lecture on communication skills or when I have presentations on communication skills, I want to see if I can get through this before we wrap up. There are 4 major forms of communication. All right? Does anybody know what they are? Or maybe want to guess what your 4 major forms of communication are? All right, so body language is part of nonverbal communication. Right? So that is how you stand, what your posture is. It's your eye contact. It's your smile. It's your handshake. It's your sweaty palms. It's your attire. It's all these different things that are part of what you're saying without actually being what you're saying. Right? How many of you had the mom who did this when you were 10 years old? When you get in a lot of trouble for something that you said? You said, well, I didn't say anything that bad. It's not what you said. It's how you said it. I dealt with that one a lot. My mom has been mad at me, but this is today and that was last week. So we'll move past that. All right? So we have nonverbal communication. What else? Verbal, right? What you say, how you say it, the volume of what you say, your word choice. Good. What are the other two? How do you communicate with people in your circle right now? How do you communicate with your peers, your friends, and your professors? Oh, so that's part of verbal, right? Or so texting, written. There it is, written. So texting is part of written. So are emails. So is all the social media and everything like that. It's all part of written communication. There's one more. It's always the last one that people get. Anybody know what it is? We have verbal. We have nonverbal. We have written. Sign language is a nonverbal, right? It is a nonverbal. It's a great, great guess. And it's a very empathetic guess. So I applaud you for that. Anybody have an idea? All right, let's use a football analogy. All right, I see I got him right there, got him right back, right? I think we generally agree that in football, one of the most impactful positions on the field is the quarterback, right? If the quarterback throws a ball and there is nobody there to catch it, how many points do they get? Does it matter? Well, but it doesn't. They're not going to win the game if nobody's going to catch the ball being thrown, right? Yeah. Okay. So verbal, nonverbal, written communication. That's us throwing the ball. Who are the receivers? The people listening. Listening is the fourth form of communication, and that is where your social awareness takes a turn. Active listening and observation, hearing what other people say and observing their body language, reading what they write, and trying to infer and understand what they're feeling in their communication is a critical skill to social awareness. So remember your listening skills. Try to listen more, right? I always say the good Lord gives us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a very good reason, because we should listen twice as much as we speak. And then social management. This is your cumulative result of all 3 of the other skills. All right? This is what will allow you to build your network, to succeed in an academic, a personal, and a professional environment. This is what will allow you to resolve conflict. Once you have achieved self-awareness, once you have achieved self-management, and once you have achieved the social awareness, then you can move on into social management and have a successful relationship with the people around you, whether it's coworkers, bosses, customers, whomever. All right? So I know we only have a minute or 2 left, so I put these discussion questions together. We don't have to get heavily into them, but these are some of the things I want you to think about as you leave today. And I also do want to focus on this last question, what your EQ takeaways are from this discussion. So we covered a lot of ground in the last hour. What is something that, let's get 3 volunteers to share what they are going to take with them when they leave here today. What made an impact on you, if anything, today? I'd love to hear about it. Yeah.
Definitely self-awareness and empathy. I think that was the biggest tool that the other manager really had that the other one didn't, like you said.
Yep.
And but she also didn't lose herself in like the sense of like, oh, I'm not gonna be a strict manager. Oh no, she was harder than the last.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because of the way that she was like that. Like that's someone I really look up to. So I definitely took away that. That's something I definitely want to work on.
I love the fact that this is meaningful to you because you've had an experience with both types of managers. Because here's what it's going to do. First of all, it's going to help you understand what cultures you want to work in, what type of manager you want to have. But also, if you find yourself in a leadership role in the future, it's going to clue you into what type of manager you want to be. That is very important in these experiences, right? When you understand how you react best to other people, how that affects your emotions, it will provide you growth in how you want to treat others. Anybody else want to share a takeaway for themselves? Yeah?
Yes. I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty socially or self-aware person and empathetic, but I definitely had a takeaway from that chart you put up with like the levels of emotions. And you talked about people who go right to the top first. Like, honestly, that's kind of me, I feel like. It's just flipping a switch.
Yep.
So it was kind of just like, I guess, relates right to me to see that maybe there's steps to it instead of just flipping the switch.
And think about how people react to and interact with you in those situations, right? You find yourself starting to go up that list of emotions. And don't you just love it when that really good friend comes by and says, calm down? Oh, that's what I needed to hear. Thank God you were here. Gotta calm down, of course. I've been missing this my entire life. I'll leave you with this last list, 12 habits of genuine people. I think part of why I like EQ so much is because of the idea of authenticity. We hear this a lot, right? We want people in our lives who are real. We want people in our lives who are authentic. Well, these are 12 habits of very authentic, very genuine people. So if nothing else, when you leave here today, you can focus on one of these 12 items. Don't try to make other people like you. Be the type of person that you would like yourself and let that come through. Be your authentic self. Don't pass judgment on other people. Forge your own path. Don't worry about what you think other people or what society want you to do. Forge your way ahead. Be generous. Be generous with your time. Be generous with your talent. Be generous with your treasure without expecting something in return, and you can expect that other people around you will do the same. Treat everyone with respect. Don't be motivated just by material things. Be motivated not just by getting a degree, but by understanding that you're in one of the greatest institutions of knowledge in the United States of America. That's really incredible. Take advantage of those opportunities. All right? Always be trustworthy. Be thick-skinned. This is part of EQ, right? Understand your emotions and how to manage them. Know when to put your phones away. When you're having a conversation with somebody and you start looking at your phone, that person will instantly think that you've checked out and that you no longer care about what they have to say. So if you're going to be present in a conversation, be present in a conversation. Don't be driven by ego. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't brag. You've been there before. Go out today. Continue to represent this institution, yourselves, the way we've all come to expect. And if I can ever help support in any way, please reach out, let me know. You have a tremendous network of people in this school that are here to help you. Here's the QR code, so that way you can sign in and get your credit for being here, for those of you who are part of Campus to Career. And then don't forget, if you did not get the connection cards on your way in, please grab them on your way out. If anybody is interested in learning more about internships, co-ops, or careers at Crestron Electronics, you can sign in on the iPad, and we'll be happy to get in contact with you about that. If you throw questions out on social media, I promise I will get to them. I will answer them. But participation's been awesome, and I can't thank you all enough for coming out and spending a rainy Wednesday with me. So hope you got a lot out of this. Thank you so much for coming.